Hey folks, Corey Comfort here with tip number 6 in our series for RIA firms looking to grow through M&A, tuck-ins, and onboarding deals. So in the last video, we talked about modeling, creating a model, right? And definitely you want to watch that video. In fact, you need to watch the whole series. They build upon each other, right? You can't do any of this until you figure out your why, and then you figure out who you're targeting and what your value proposition is, etc., right? But the next build on figuring out your model. So you figured out now a model for how you're going to do deals going forward, a framework, a consistent way that you do them so that you can easily manage them, etc. So it's clear what you're putting out to the market, so the expectations are met with the advisors and it achieves your objectives. So now we're going to drill down within that model as to what the actual deal structure will be, or structures within your model that achieve your objectives, right? So structures are going to look different, right? Depending upon what kind of deal. I mean, a structure for somebody who's, for junior advisors who you're just onboarding and bringing in as employees is very different than a structure for somebody you're merging in who's going to get equity in your firm is very different than a structure that you're going to do for a retiring advisor who is looking for a place to be able to transition their book of business and get the value of it out of it in terms of cash compensation, right? I mean, if somebody's looking to exit, they're going to be less interested in equity as a likely to be less interested in equity as part of the compensation on the deal. Whereas, if you bring in somebody in who still has a long runway, is looking to build, and especially if you have some sort of exit strategy, if that's part of your model and business proposition, value proposition, well, then that becomes more valuable to people. So once you've figured out your why, your value proposition, your target market, all that kind of stuff, your model, that's going to start to give you what the components of your deal structure is going to be, right? So let's talk about some of the aspects, and then obviously you need to decide how you put them together and get potentially some advice on how to do that. But part of the questions are, okay, what is your compensation? Is this just a salary deal where you're doing an onboarding deal of advisors where they can make more money? Are you going to give, in those situations, are you going to give them some sort of profit share? Do you want to have them incentivized that way? Maybe you're going to do some sort of phantom equity or equity appreciation type arrangement, which will give them a piece of the back end, even though they don't have true ownership. Maybe you're going to create a profits interest or other class of equity that will be for those people. And then, for your acquisitions and tuck-ins, is your compensation going to be cash? Is it going to be equity? Is it going to be some combination? And what are the terms of that? How much up front, how much on the back end, etc. And depending upon what type of deal you're doing, different aspects of that are going to be much more appropriate. Other things to think about in deal structuring are there going to be, what kind of limitations or restrictions are there? Are there going to be restrictive covenants, meaning non-solicits, non-competes, that kind of stuff? Do you have a model that you've built where you're institutionalizing clients so that the people you bring in and acquire, the firm is now going to own the clients? Or is it the kind of model where you bring people in, they stay as long as they want, but if they want to leave, they can take their clients with them? Those are two very different type of models that dictate very different types of deal structures. And that may, and all these pieces tie together, right? Because if you are bringing people in where you're going to own their clients, they're probably going to be more likely they want to get paid for those clients, meaning the value, not just paid for their services, but paid, in the value for that book of business that they've sold to you, because they no longer own it. They can't take it with them. Whereas if you're doing a deal where they can leave, well, then there's a lot less chance that you're going to pay for that, because you don't really, even though you're going to value economically from whatever the split deal is between you and the advisor, you're not going to get the enterprise value of that because they can take it with you anytime. So that'll, so those kind of things on who owns the clients, are there restrictive covenants, that kind of stuff really comes into play as well. Obviously, what compensation is a piece of it as well. How you value the deal obviously comes in as a piece on all of these kind of deals where there's any kind of buyout, whether it's cash or equity or some combination, because you need to come up with a valuation. So what is your deal structure? What is your model actually on valuation? And then what does that dictate on the deal structure? What are the payment terms? How much you're putting up front? In a lot of deals where you're doing acquisitions, you're going to put up 25 to 33% up front. But that varies. I mean, I've seen all cash deals. I've seen 50% deals. I've seen the back end paid over a year, over 3 years, over 5 years, over 7 years. So a lot of that depends upon what the structure is. If you have a retiring advisor in 3 years, it may be very different than if you have somebody who's going to stay with you for a long time. So after you've created the model, focus on the deal structure that is consistent with that model, that is going to be attractive to the advisors that you've identified that you're targeting, is going to be consistent with your why, your objectives to get you where you want to be. Make sure that you don't work with somebody who is stuck, okay, any kind of professional, lawyer, investment banker, accountant, whatever, who is stuck on one deal structure or 2 deal structures because that's what they know, okay? Deals should be structured, and your professionals should be creative enough and experienced enough to structure those deals to achieve the business objectives you want. Listen, there are sometimes some tax things you got to deal with and other regulatory issues in our industry. Obviously, there's some limitations, but for the most part, there are a lot of ways to be creative to make sure that the deal structure fits and achieves your objectives and fits under the model that you've created. So that is tip number, 6. And then tip number 7 is coming up in the next one. Watch out for it. It's going to be on due diligence on deals. Take care.